Here. Okay, now I'll stop talking.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Melissa Rosser. I'm with CalPrivacy, or the California Privacy Protection Agency. Today, I'll be sharing some of the most important privacy protections and consumer tools that can help reduce identity theft and online scams, which we know can affect people all across California. And so I'm going to show you the topics. And as I'm going along, if you guys have questions, I'm happy to answer those. Maybe Pablo can just help me keep an eye on the chat. That would be appreciated. So today I'm going to be talking about the role of our agency a little bit because you may not have heard of us before. We're going to be talking about what is personal information and why you should protect it, your privacy rights, and then we'll be talking about some tools that you can use to exercise those rights, including opt-out preference signals, and then some other tips along the way. But the goal of this presentation is to help you stay safe online and as you interact with businesses, and it's to protect your personal information from being misused. And so to give you a quick foundation of who we are, let me briefly explain what CalPrivacy does. And so we are a new agency. You may have seen us on your ballot in 2020. We were created by the voters of California through the California Privacy Rights Act to protect the privacy rights of all Californians. And as Pablo said, we are the only state in the country that has a dedicated consumer privacy agency. A lot of other states have privacy rights, but Californians have some of the strongest privacy rights in the country. And so I'm really pleased to talk to you about those today. So our agency performs a lot of functions, but those functions are all designed with one strategy in mind. We want to make privacy easier. I'm going to be going over a lot of tips with you today, and our goal is always to make it as easy as we can. And so our legal team works to write regulations to enforce the laws that are under our agency. We also do public awareness. That's what brings me here with you today. We help educate the public on privacy rights and how to exercise them. Our auditing and enforcement teams help to hold companies accountable when they violate privacy rights of Californians. Our policy and legislative team provides expertise on privacy laws that protect Californians' information, and they work to pass laws to make things easier for you. And then lastly, we have a new tool called Drop that was just released in January to help make your privacy easier. So now let's talk about your personal information and why it's important to protect that information. So when we say personal information, we mean any data that can identify you or be linked to you. This includes obvious things like your name or your address, but it also includes less obvious information like your location from a mobile device, your purchasing history, your online search history. Personal information can be collected offline or online. And so think about a loyalty card at the grocery store, and social media, apps, if you use apps, or even paper sign-up forms. So no matter how your information is collected, it is protected under California law. Um, and so within this, we also have sensitive personal information, which has even more protection. This includes things like your social security number, your financial details, your health information, or biometric data. Why is it important for you to know what sensitive personal information is? Because scammers often seek sensitive personal information first because it allows them to take over accounts or it allows them to commit identity theft. And so they also rely on personal information to build trust or to impersonate. Um, the good news is that Californians are not powerless when it comes to fraud and scams. We have strong privacy rights to protect this information, rights that many people don't even realize that they have. And so the real reason we talk about personal information is for you to think about it when you hand it out, before you share it. When somebody asks you for a piece of information, if you're going to share information online or on social media, We just want you to kind of pause and ask yourself whether it's really needed to get the service that you're trying to have provided. So now let's talk about what rights that you have. So as I said, Californians have some of the strongest privacy rights in the country. It's a lot. It's a lot to remember. So we're the government, so we came up with an acronym to help you remember your different rights. And so L is for limit. You have, if you interact with a business, you have the right to limit how companies use your personal information. This is really important, especially when it comes to your sensitive personal information, such as your health information, financial, or location data. L is for opt out, or O is for opt out of selling or sharing your data. And this is not just for ads, but also for creating detailed profiles that can be sold or shared with other businesses. You have the right to correct any inaccurate information. You also have the right to know what data that companies have collected about you. When you know what information businesses have about you, it can help you decide which rights to exercise next. You have the right to be treated equally. Whether you exercise your privacy rights or not, you should still have same access to equal service and equal pricing. In other words, you can't be punished for exercising your privacy rights. Lastly is D for delete. You have the right to request that businesses delete your personal information. So one of the goals at CalPrivacy is to make sure that people know they have these rights and they understand how to use them. And so you can opt out of selling your information, and you can also exercise your rights by visiting a business's website or by contacting a business. And later in the presentation, I'll show you how that works. But for now, I want to review your information. I want to review your rights. Let's see what people can remember. And so we're going to play a game. It's called Know Your Rights. And so what I'm going to do is show you a couple of emojis or symbols that symbolize different privacy rights that Californians have. And you guys can drop into the chat if you want to guess what kind of right it is that we're referring to. Okay, you guys ready? Here comes the first question. So which privacy right is depicted by the emoji that is shown on the screen? So we have, it looks like a little document and a waste basket. And so would you say this is the right to delete, the right to know, or the right to opt out? What do you think this emoji is symbolizing? You can feel free to drop your answer into the chat. Okay, looks like we've got a few guesses for delete, delete, A. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys the answer. It is the right to delete. Okay, so you guys ready for the next one? I think this is also the last one for this round. So which privacy right again is depicted by the emoji? And so we've got some folders, some files, along with a pair of eyeballs. So does this to you look like the right to correct, the right to know, or the right to opt out? Go ahead and get your guesses in, drop them into the chat. The right to correct, the right to know, the right to opt out. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and give you the answer. It is the right to know. So good job, everyone. Thanks for playing. This is our raccoon. Some people call him Rocky. Some people call her Roxy, but we like to have her come into our presentation. So thanks for playing the game. So now I'm going to go into more detail about how do you submit a privacy request. And so for businesses that you interact with, maybe it's a store that you visit or some kind of business that you interact with online, doesn't matter if they're based in California. If they do business with Californians, they're required to follow our statute. And so you have the right over your data. And anyone, again, who's based in California or they do business in California is required to comply. Sometimes if you submit a request, a business may need to ask you some questions to verify who you are to complete your request. But so if you want to submit a privacy request, the first thing that you do is you select a business and find out how to contact them about your privacy. So you can find the company's privacy policy, usually on their website, usually at the bottom of the page, or maybe on the side of the page, depending on how it's set up. You can look for a link that says privacy policy. Sometimes it says do not sell or share my personal information. You may also see California privacy choices. And so once you're on that page, you can find information about how to exercise your rights. So you can usually submit that through a web form. Sometimes they'll give you an email address of a person to contact. They may have a toll-free number that you can call that's listed on the website's privacy policy. So then it's up to you to decide, what rights you want to exercise. So the next thing they may need you to do is just prove that it's really you. You may need to provide your name, your email address, maybe some other information, but you only need to provide the information that they must have to complete your request. If you think that they're asking for more information than they really need to verify who you are, you can submit a complaint to us, and I'll show you how to do that later in the presentation. Once you've done that, you wait for their response. They're required to respond to you within 45 days. So they may need to contact you if they need more time to complete your request, but you shouldn't be having to follow up with them. They should be following up with you. So if you don't get a response or if you don't get a response within the time allotted, you can submit a complaint to our agency, and I'll show you those tests. Yeah, I would say just your name and contact information should probably be enough. And then you can ask them why they need to know. So that way, if you're worried that they're asking you too much, that gives you a little bit more standing to be able to push back and say, I think I've given you enough. So that is how you submit a privacy request. So now we're going to talk about ways that your information may be collected in other ways, and then what businesses do with that information. So a lot of this information collection happens in everyday situations, often without people realizing it. Personal information can be collected when you use a website or a mobile app. It may be when you make purchases, either online or in store. You can also provide information when you sign up for rewards or programs or newsletters, through social media activity, and then also through public records and data sharing between businesses. And so once personal information is collected, businesses may use it in a few different ways. One common use that you've probably noticed is targeted ads. Businesses analyze your online behavior, your preferences, and your demographics, and they use that to select ads specifically for you. The ads you see are often different than what somebody else may see, and so that's how you know that they are targeted. Another use is to track your purchasing habits. So for example, if your buying patterns change, like you start buying baby items, they may say, oh, they're going to have a baby in the family. Maybe they need some wipes. Maybe they need a diaper genie or a diaper pail. And so you may start to see ads for, businesses that make predictions on what you're going to buy next, and they want to market things to you so that you buy that specifically. And then one of the other ways, or one of the other things that can happen is that businesses can actually sell your information to other businesses. This becomes really tricky for you if you're trying to protect your personal information because now your information is in the hands of a business you didn't directly interact with. And so, how are you supposed to protect yourself when you don't know who they are? And so, we'll be talking about how you can protect yourself from businesses that you don't directly interact with. Um, let's see. How do you limit ads? They are annoying. So I'm going to talk to you about ways that you can make it a little bit harder later in the presentation, for sure. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some of our top privacy tips. So now we've talked about your privacy rights and some of the risks. The next question is, how do you actually exercise your privacy rights? And so we talked about your ability to submit a privacy request to businesses that you already interact with. But we've talked about that businesses get information collected in other ways. And so what can you do to protect yourself? One of the things to remember is that privacy isn't automatic. You have to exercise your rights. You have to get control of your data. When you're doing so, you don't have to explain why to a business. You don't have to explain why you're making a request, and the business can't charge you for exercising your rights. Most businesses offer at least two methods to submit a privacy request, and I'll share with you some of those. Um, and then I'm going to give you a high-level overview, but you can always visit our website, which I'm going to give it to you a few times during this presentation, privacy.ca.gov, for details. We're always coming up with new ways of trying to get information out to the public. And so, 2 months from now, the website's going to look a little bit different than it looks today. So you can always stay up to date with what's going on. So one of the things that you may have heard before is to strengthen your passwords. Strong online habits protect not just our accounts, but they reduce the risk of identity theft. So taking a few minutes to update your passwords can make a big difference in keeping your information safe. So you want to use something that's strong, it's kind of lengthy, it has a combination of letters and symbols. I know that makes it really hard to read. So now there's a lot of like password managers out there that may exist on your phone, it may exist on your computer, so it limits the mental strain and having to keep up with different passwords, and it helps to keep your information safe. You can also turn on multi-factor authentication whenever it's available. So this is something where you log on to an account and then it will text you or email you with a code that lets you get onto the website. I actually use this whenever I can because I have a hard time with my passwords. I have a hard time remembering. Some of them are saved in my computer, some of them are saved on my phone, and so it's hard for me to navigate between the two. And so I like multi-factor authentication. When you're doing that, they say avoid, personal details like birthdays or pet names. So that's why I use a cute nickname for my pet as my password. It's like nobody knows what I call him. Um, and then you also need to update your passwords regularly. If you've ever gotten one of those emails that says that you've been subject to a breach, probably means it's time to update some of your passwords. So this is something that can just take you a few minutes to do, but it's very valuable for your online safety. Okay. So one of the things that you can do to help with those annoying ads that somebody mentioned is to limit the tracking of websites. And so California law gives you the right to opt out of data sharing, and it requires businesses to give you an easy way to opt out. But you can also change your browser settings. And so when I'm talking about your browser, I'm talking about like Microsoft Edge or Google Chrome, whatever Safari, whatever browser that you use should give you the options to delete your browsing data. And then it also gives you the option to delete third-party cookies. Cookies sound delicious. but they're files that get stored on your computer that enable businesses to track you as you move around the internet. And so as you go to different websites, there are different trackers that follow you. And so if you delete your browsing data and the cookies periodically, this limits businesses' abilities to track you as you go online. If you're like me, you like doing a lot of research and checking different sources, this is something that's important to do. Again, just periodically. It just takes a couple minutes to do it. You could do it once a month, and that significantly increases your privacy. Have you guys noticed when you started going to websites a couple of years ago, there was a pop-up banner and it tells you, click it to opt out, do not sell or share. It has different phrasing, but pop-up comes up when you go to different websites. So I thought when I came to work at CalPrivacy that you had to agree to get access to the website. And so I always agreed. But you don't. You can opt out of selling or sharing your information and still get access to the information that you want online. And so you can take the time to opt out. And so you can use those privacy links or toggles that say, do not sell or share my personal information. It may have a label like your privacy choices. And these can also be found sometimes at the bottom of a website or in a pop-up banner. And so it may ask you to accept, to manage your preferences, to opt out of selling or sharing your data. And so you can take your time to exercise your rights and opt out. Now, if you're like me and you visit a lot of different websites and you're not a patient person, you don't like having to opt out every time you go to a new website, there is another option. It's called an opt-out preference signal. An opt-out preference signal enables you to share your preferences across websites that you visit. And so you set it up one time, and then from that point on, you don't have to have those little pop-ups anymore that you have to opt out of. So if you want to use an opt-out preference signal, it communicates to every website that you go to what your preferences are. So if you don't want your information sold or shared, it sends a signal when you go to the website, and it will usually give you a little message that your preferences have been honored. And so if that's something that is of interest to you, there is a website where you can go to learn more about this, and I'm going to share it in the chat. But the website is called globalprivacycontrol.org. And so when you visit that website, it'll share with you some browsers that are designed with privacy in mind. So those do exist. And then most browsers also have what's called an add-on that allows you to do an opt-out preference signal. Personally, myself, this isn't, agency endorsed or anything, but I like to use the browser that's called DuckDuckGo. I found it on globalprivacycontrol.org. I started using it a couple of years ago. And what I like about it is that I feel like my searches are private now. I can search for something on the internet and then I don't get ads for that thing later. And so I really like that. The other thing that I like about it is it tells me how many different trackers it's blocking. And so I once went to a website that had 11 trackers. And so when I went to that website and I saw that, I thought, I'm not sure I want to be on this website. It seems, I don't like that. It doesn't seem like it's designed with privacy in mind. So I think I'm going to get my information elsewhere. So I just like the information that it provides. So why does it matter for us to talk about opt-out preference signals, or you can call them OOPS for short? It sounds like an accident, but it's very deliberate. But it's important to help. Oh, the browser again. Oh, the one that I use, it's called DuckDuckGo. There's other ones. There's Brave. Firefox is another one that's designed with privacy in mind. So these help to reduce tracking automatically. They cut down on targeted ads, and they lower the amount of personal information that you have circulating online. So this is really important if you want to avoid scams, because scammers often rely on purchase data to decide who to target and how, and they can get that online. And so because there's less personal information that's being sold or shared, the fewer chances that scammers have to build convincing profiles to impersonate trusted contacts. But for some good news, our agency is working to make privacy easier for Californians. During the most recent legislative session, we sponsored a bill called the California Opt Me Out Act, to close a major gap in privacy protections. The bill passed, and so next year, all browsers that are operating in California will be required to offer an easy-to-use opt-out preference signal, or OOPS, that allows users to automatically communicate their privacy preferences to websites, not to sell or share the user's personal information. And so for now, you can visit globalprivacycontrol.org if you want to learn about your options today. But just know that next year, every browser is going to be required to have an opt-out preference signal. And so that's some exciting news coming down the pike. Okay. So in addition to your browser, so we talked about ways to be safe using your browser. If you use a mobile device like a phone or a tablet, there's different ways that it's collecting information about you as well. They can, it's for a lot of people, the mobile phone is the primary way that they access the internet. So I think it's important that we talk about this. Mobile devices can collect information such as location data, app usage and activity, and it can also have device identifiers that are used for advertising. So apps can share this information with third-party trackers, even when the app itself seems harmless. So there's a few high-impact steps that people can take. One is to reset your mobile advertising ID or MAID. This limits how advertisers track you across apps. And so if anybody is using an iPhone, you can find this setting in privacy or security under Apple advertising and personalized ads. If you have a newer phone, it's harder to do it. But if you have an older phone, that's where you find it. For an Android, you find this under privacy and then ads. You can find out how to do that. And that helps to limit your information as you navigate across the internet. In addition to that, you can review and adjust your app permission settings. How many of you have like downloaded an app and used it once and then never used it again? Just me. You may have forgotten about it, but it hasn't forgotten about you. So if there are apps that you don't use anymore, you could go ahead and take them off your device, because they may still be collecting information about you. For the apps that you do use and you do find valuable, you can adjust their permission settings. So as a default, a lot of apps are asking for access to your location, your contacts, your microphone, your camera. And so think about your apps and think, does this app really need access to my location? Maybe sometimes it does, but maybe it's only when you're using the app. You know, like I like my grocery store app. It'll like tell me where things are when I'm at the grocery store if I'm in a hurry and I don't want to walk around too much. That's convenient for it to have my location, but it doesn't need it all the time. You know, if it's just a Tuesday and I'm working, it doesn't really need my location data. So just, you know, take 5-10 minutes, or unless you're like my daughter and you have hundreds of apps, that it's going to take you a little bit more time. But if you have, you know, a few apps, it shouldn't take you too long to go through and adjust those settings. And then you can also turn off third-party tracking as well. And so those settings don't break your phone, they don't limit its functionality, they just reduce unnecessary data sharing. And so again, you can find this in your privacy and security settings on your phone. So this has been a crash course. We have more information on our website. We've actually done blog posts about this with really detailed instructions. And so feel free to visit our website to learn more. But this is important because when mobile data is shared, it can be used to track somebody's movements, to build detailed profiles, and to target people with location-based scams. And so it can increase your exposure to robocalls, phishing texts, and impersonation scams. And so taking just a few minutes to adjust these preferences can make a big difference for you. And just keep in mind, you don't have to do everything at once. Even changing one or two settings can significantly reduce how much information is shared. And if you have any trouble with this, I know you guys have access to the tech cafe, but any caregivers or trusted helpers can help you with these settings as well. And always remember that if a business ignores your opt-out choices or makes it difficult for you to control your information, California law gives you a way to report that. And that's actually what we're going to talk about next. So let's say you follow the happy path, you're trying to exercise your privacy rights, or you or someone you know is trying to exercise your privacy rights, and a business doesn't respond, the business delays, or the business just refuses without a valid reason. That could be a violation of the California Consumer Privacy Act. And so, or if also there's not a way to contact them, because it is required in the privacy policy that they give you a way to contact them. Or if it's confusing or misleading when you try to exercise your rights. So when that happens, we ask that you please report it. On our website, you can find the complaints very prominently when you go to the homepage. It's like the top left corner of our page, where you can file a complaint. And it sounds scary and official, but it's a really simple form to fill out. It just takes a few minutes. And our privacy or our enforcement team looks at every complaint. They use it to monitor trends. They may use it to take an enforcement action. But when you report it, it helps us to hold companies accountable. Has anybody here ever heard of a data broker? A data broker. So a data broker is interesting because it's a business that has a lot of information about people. It has a lot of personal information. But the tricky thing about it is it doesn't get the information from the consumer directly. So they may get it from online tracking, public records, apps, retail purchases. So they don't have a direct relationship with the consumer. And so if you are a consumer and you're mindful about your privacy, data brokers throw a wrench into things because you don't know them. You don't have a relationship with them, but they know you and they have your information. And this is something that's it's a big industry. There's big data brokers and there's little data brokers, but some of them do advertise online that they have a lot of information to purchase. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Our executive director says personal information is the new oil. It's the new currency that is on the marketplace. We've got a comment from Peggy. She said she saw a scam from Evite. Always go to the website and do not open the link in the email. Yes. That's a good point. Yes. The scams are getting really sophisticated with AI and with the fact that there are multinational corporations that are doing this in other countries. It makes it really tricky. And so I did suggest to Pablo, another speaker who's from the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, who does a really great presentation about different scams and how to avoid them. And so where my presentation fits into that is I'm trying to build a house around your personal information, right? To keep your personal information safe, to keep it away from the scammers. But yes, there are definitely steps that you can take once you've been contacted by a scammer. But the important thing is to, yes, verify the information, stop and pause, don't get into a hurry trying to send somebody some money. Talk to a friend about it, because the scams are getting more sophisticated, especially with the advent of AI. They can impersonate people, they pretend to be government agencies, and it's very tricky. And so, if you're contacted by someone and you don't recognize the number, please talk to a friend, call somebody here from the group to talk it through, because they do try to create a sense of urgency, that makes it very, very difficult. And so I hope that you'll be able to get that presentation too, because it's really valuable. And so we've talked about what a data broker is. So the concerns about data brokers is they do collect massive quantities of sensitive personal information. Does anybody want to guess how many data brokers there are in the state of California, or who do business in the state of California? You can drop it into the chat, or any guesses on how many data brokers there are in California? Okay. Well, I have good news for you, Judy. It's not quite that many. There's 585 data brokers that are registered in the state of California. But nonetheless, it's tricky because most consumers are not aware that this data collection is happening, and that the sale of your information is basically just a credit card away. The data gets sold to many other entities, right? And so they sell to anyone. And so anybody with a credit card. So it may end up in the hands of people who you would not want to have your personal information, like scammers and fraudsters. And so that's why it's really beneficial to be in California. Oh, the other risk, of course, is also data breaches, right? Like data brokers, are not like anyone else. They're subject to data breaches just like everyone else. So information can be leaked. Right now, we've learned that the federal government is buying some data from data brokers. And so, it's just difficult to collect your information and keep it safe in this environment. Now, in California, for years, Californians have had the right to ask businesses to delete their personal information. But there was a big gap when it came to data brokers, which are companies that collect and sell personal information about people they don't actually directly interact with. Before recent legislation passed, Californians who wanted to remove their information from data brokers had to find them. They had to figure out how to contact each one, and they had to submit their deletion requests one by one. So when I joined the CalPrivacy team a couple of years ago, I was thinking, I'm going to do this. I'm going to reach out to these data brokers and I'm going to tell them to stop selling my information, because it was right there on our website. We had all the different data brokers, we had the contact information that Californians can use. Unfortunately, there's 500 of them. And so I didn't want to quit my full-time job to contact data brokers all the time. And so fortunately, the California legislature passed a bill called the Delete Act, and it was passed to solve that problem. And so the law requires data brokers to register with our agency, which has already been required. But then it also required our agency, CalPrivacy, to build an accessible, easy to use deletion tool so customers can request deletion in one place at one time. So this tool is called the Delete Request and Opt-out Platform, or DROP. The Delete Act shifts the burdens away from consumers and puts responsibility back where it belongs on the data brokers. And so it's a new online tool that was just released by CalPrivacy in January, and it enables you to request the deletion of your personal information one time in one place. And so with Drop, you can just send one request. And here's the key. Data brokers will be required by law to delete personal information every 45 days, unless they have a legal reasoning for keeping that. But it launched on January 1st to consumers, and it's a major win for Californians. And here's what's really cool too. Nobody else anywhere in the world is doing this. It's only in California. So you can sign up for it on our website. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about how it works, but if you visit our website, privacy.ca.gov, it's right there on our homepage, and it's really easy. So let me show you a little bit how it works. So it's a 3-step process. Most people are able to do it in 5 minutes or less. And so the process is designed to be simple, and it's also designed to be secure. And so you can complete Drop on your own, or you can get help with a trusted person like a caregiver or family member or community organization. So I'll briefly walk you through each step now. So the first step is that you do need to verify your residency because this is only available to Californians. So you have to prove that you are a resident of California. And so you can do this by entering basic information onto our website. And you can also sign in using login.gov, which is the secure government login used by agencies like Social Security Administration or the VA. So you may already have an account. But this step helps ensure that requests are legitimate and it protects against fraud. So that's the first step. The second step is to create your profile. And so you'll do this by entering some of your personal information. This information is used only to help data brokers match you to their records. It's not shared publicly and it's not sold. It does ask you for a few different things. You don't have to submit every detail that it asks for. You can only submit what's relevant to you or what's easy for you to find. And so if you have trouble finding any of these details, you don't have to put them on there. So something that it does ask about is your mobile advertising ID, which you may be able to find on your phone. You're not going to be able to find it on every phone. Not every phone has a mobile advertising ID that your provider will show you. And we do have a new video out on our website that shows you how to find your MAID if you have trouble finding it. And then in addition to that, if you have a connected TV, a smart TV, you may have a connected TV ID. Again, you may not always be able to find this. And so just if you can find it, you can put it. If you can't find it, don't worry about it. The last, we do ask for a VIN number, a vehicle identification number. And the reason we do that is because if you have a smart car or a connected vehicle, your provider, what is it called? The brand may be selling your information. We've actually taken enforcement actions against 2 car companies who are selling customers' information. So we have made them change their practices so that they're not doing that anymore. But if you have a connected vehicle, you may want to enter your ID so that the data broker can use it to match you into their system. But again, if you don't have it or if it's not easy to find, you can just skip right over it. It's not required. So the last step is to review your information. So just, give it a once over, make sure that the information that you put doesn't have any errors in it. And then once you hit submit to submit your request, you will receive a drop ID number. My drop ID number was not as lengthy as the one that you see on the screen. I think this was when we were testing, we had really long numbers, but they're not as long now. You are going to want to hold on to your drop ID. And so you can either put a note on your computer or phone, or you can write a note physically and put it in a safe place. Because the drop ID allows you to check on the status of your request. It allows you to make updates later. And so if you get a new email address or if your phone number changes, you may want to make updates to your account. And so your drop ID enables you to do that easily. And then if you have other information, then you can resubmit it without having to resubmit a new request every time. And so we have a question for Maureen about if it applies to businesses in other countries. And so kind of like the California Consumer Privacy Act, if they are doing business in California, if they are collecting information about Californians, they are subject to our laws, regardless of where they're located. And so we have taken enforcement actions against data brokers in Texas. We've taken enforcement actions against businesses in Georgia. So they don't have to be physically located in California to be subject to our laws. And so if you hear about a business, even if they're not in California, but you've done business with them, they have your information, and you're worried that they're violating your privacy rights, please let us know about that. Please submit a complaint with us. And then there's another question. Do we use the ID on our CDL, which was destroyed, or the address we are displaced at? I would say probably the one that's on your ID is going to be the easiest one to match up. And so I would do that one if you can. And I'm so sorry to hear about being displaced by the wildfire. That's devastating, and I'm so sorry. Does deletion request allow for variation of a person's name? That's a really good question. I don't know that we take more than one name, but I can look into that and send it because I'm sure that situation has come up. And so I can send that back to Pablo if that's helpful. I can definitely ask our drop support team. That's a great question. So what happens next after you submit your drop request? So data brokers are required to begin processing drop requests in August. So starting on August 1st, they are required to start processing the deletion. So this is a really exciting time because it's about to start happening. We're about to start seeing deletions coming through. So it's really exciting. But what was I going to say? This is not a time limited thing. So you don't have to sign up for drop now or in the next 30 days or anything like that. You can sign up for drop at any time. It's going to be the law moving forward, forever and ever. So if you have neighbors that you see every now and then, or you see your family at the holidays and they're from California, please mention this to them. We'll still be operating drop and looking forward to those deletions happening. So you have the ability once you sign up, like I said, you can check your status using your drop ID, or you can also edit or add more information. So like I said, if you get a new phone number or a new email address, I think you are allowed to submit up to 4 email addresses. I know a lot of people have more email addresses than that because it makes it easier to avoid some of those advertising emails that you're trying to avoid. But for now, that's what our system allows. And so you can edit or add more information. And so that is our drop system. So I hope you will all sign up for that. And I also just want to mention, privacy is a journey. I've given you guys a lot of different things that you can do. Some of them take 15 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And of course, they all take time. It all adds up. And so just remember, you don't have to do everything at once. Also remember that you don't have to remember everything. You can visit our website for more information. And then also there's ways that you can stay updated as we come out with new resources and new tips. So if you would like to stay in touch with us, You can join our email list by visiting our website, which is privacy.ca.gov. You can follow us on social media. If any of you are on social media, CalPrivacy is on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and we just got on TikTok. And so we're also on LinkedIn. And so if you're on social media, we're on social media, and we're trying to share tips as often as we can. We also have a blog that comes out once a month, so you can visit that on our website. It provides more in-depth information about some of the tips that I've given you today. And then lastly, you can visit our website, privacy.ca.gov, that has privacy tips and ways that you can protect your personal information. So that's everything that I had for you today. I thank you so much for your time and for being here today. And please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you ever have questions or if you need any additional information about how to protect your personal information. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And then I see we have a question from Kristen. My concern is that even reputable businesses fail to respond to privacy requests within 45 days. Require me to contact them numerous times, thus waste a lot of time. How to avoid this? I mean, you can definitely make a complaint with our agency if you file a request and you don't get a response, or they delay the response, or they just don't answer you. Then you can definitely reach out to us to make a complaint. So that way our enforcement team will be aware of that. Any other questions?
Okay. Well, I think that's no more questions. Thanks again to Melissa and CalPrivacy. I said it in the chat, but I'll say it again for everyone who's listening. We have IT Cafe once a month. I've put a link for the next one, which is August 22nd at our office. And I guess there's one more question, but I'll finish my spiel first. We have volunteers that will sit down with you one-on-one and can help you sign up for drop, can help you find the MAID, the MAID, the mobile advertising ID, on your phone and help give you a more complete drop application, and can also help you change the permission settings on your apps, on your devices, and or even help you set up a different, more privacy-oriented browser like DuckDuckGo, Brave, or Firefox. Yeah. And there's a couple more things in the chat if you want to address that,
Sure.
Melissa.
Okay, so there's a question about Identity Guard. There are a lot of different services right now that are available, paid services, that they say that they will protect your personal information. They may take some of the manual steps that I'm talking about and take them for you. I'm not familiar personally with any of these companies. And so what I would tell you is, if there's a service that you're interested in, don't just search for reviews, because, with social media and everything now, there's a lot of influencers that get benefits and they get paid to promote things. And so a lot of times review websites are flooded with those. And so I would look for complaints if there are people who are complaining about the service. That may provide you with some valuable information before you decide to purchase a service. What I've talked to you about today is all available for free, but I know that it does take time. And so if you would rather spend your time doing other things and you have resources to dedicate, that's up to you to decide if you want to do that. I understand complaints take a lot of time, Kristen, and there's a lot of violators. For sure. We get hundreds of complaints every week. We're a small agency. We have about 60 staff. And so definitely takes time to investigate these, and I definitely understand I would say if there's a business that you feel like, they're not good with privacy, maybe you don't do business with them. I mean, that's always an option as well if you can avoid it. And so how can we stop influencers if you get off social media? I don't I don't know how else to do that. I get emails that do not provide a way to unsubscribe myself. Can I reach out to the companies? So the trouble is if you reach out to the companies, if it's a scammer, then you have just let them know that there's somebody on the other end of the line. So I definitely recommend that you guys get DFPI to come do a presentation for you because I've heard them talk about this many times. But yes,
Okay,
it's
that's fine.
tricky. And so you don't want to verify that
Have
there's a
you bring me a
person who's
notebook?
at the end of the line. And so you can just move it to your spam folder and then hopefully your email provider will start to block those. But sometimes if you unsubscribe or you report it as spam, then you have somebody who is not a good actor, right? And if they haven't provided you with a way to unsubscribe, then they're probably not a good actor. You don't want to say like, "Hey, yeah, I'm here. You got a live person," because then they may try to scam you at the next point of contact.
I had a quick question. Can you
Yes.
hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
I was trying to type something into chat, and I'm like, God, by the time I get through typing this, they're going to be logged off.
How can I help?
Every now and then I get a letter from a company that says we had a data breach, and so we're going to give you this free data privacy protection service for the next year or whatever. I just got one the other day from a company that wants me to sign up with Epic, which is a privacy solutions company. I'm always a little suspicious of these companies. I think here I am giving more of my information to another entity online.
Yes.
Is it really worth it? And or is it just a marketing thing for subscribing to something that will charge me after the initial free period?
Again, I can't speak to that because that kind of falls outside of what our agency does, but I will tell you that by practicing privacy, by following the tips that I have provided for you today, that does help to limit how much of your personal information is out there. And I would say, yes, if you've already been subjected to a breach, something else that you can do is to freeze your credit. And so you can contact the three major credit bureaus and freeze it. And so that way, anytime somebody tries to open a new account or anything like that, you'll get a notification and they won't be able to do that. It takes a few minutes to lock it. It takes a few minutes to unlock it. And so then if you want it unlocked because you want to open a new account, you can do that, but it locks it down to make sure that nobody's going to open an account in your name.
Okay, thanks.
I get emails that do not provide a way to unsubscribe myself. Can I reach out to the enforcement to check out, reach out the company? Oh, I think we already answered that one. DFPI is the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation. They're another state agency. I frequently present alongside them. And so I would say my side of the house is keeping your personal information away from scammers. But their side of the house is telling you what to do when you have been contacted by a scammer. And so I think it would dovetail nicely with my presentation. And so,
Melissa, I apologize for asking another question, but maybe this is another agency. I repeatedly do business with even reputable people, and to pay bills online, instead of letting you know about how to do it through bill pay, they always want you to get in an automated payout settlement so that they have your bank data or they have your credit card data, and they often don't give you additional information. And this includes businesses as presumably reputable as things like AAA. There's probably one of the leading insurers in the state of California. So my question is, do you guys handle consumer protection of credit card information and what people who take our money have to do, or is that another agency?
yeah, that sounds more financial.
So is that under
But you
like
can,
consumer protection and
yeah,
not,
let me
but it's
find the
also a
number really.
privacy issue. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a very narrow, so privacy law is a complicated tapestry. There's a lot of different agencies that handle different aspects of privacy. And so you guys have probably heard of HIPAA, right? Like that's probably one of the earliest ones that we all know about. And HIPAA helps with your health privacy information. And so ours is, if you have a business, if you have a relationship with the business, and they're selling or sharing your information, that's when we come into play. And so, but for financial institutions and things like that, there's different kinds of agencies that help with that. And so I'm going to give you guys the number for the DFTI complaint hotline. And that seems like a good place to start. Or even if it's not them who's the exact entity to deal with it, they would be able to refer you to the correct agency.
Thank you. Yeah, I trust California more than the FBI, so I was hoping you could give me a California
Oh,
agency.
well, that is the Department of Financial Protection and
Oh,
Innovation
okay.
is
Department of Finance.
California.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'll give you their website too. But yes,
Okay.
they are California based and they have a large staff that maintain that hotline. So usually you can get right through. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for your time. It was really a pleasure to come and speak with you guys today. Thank you so much, and I hope you're able to sign up for DROP and then also to exercise your rights in the other ways that we discussed today to protect your personal information.
You were great. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Okay. And end the recording.